Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the S.T.E.M Files on OMS TV. This is the intention of this program is to be a voice for science and technology culture as well as business culture. My name is Tariq Muhammad, Chairman and Chief Science Officer of Original Man Scientific. I also serve as the Interim Student Minister of Science and Technology for the Nation of Islam. I have my co-host, Jabril.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Jabril Muhammad, Vice Chairman of Original Man Scientific, budding engineer, particularly in materials. And I'm very excited to be here. Before we go on, make sure you subscribe and go on to YouTube at OMS TV. Also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us at OMANSci_. That's OMANSCI_. Let's get it popping, family.
All right, family. So this is a very special episode to me. This is a double ministry collabo. For those who don't understand what I mean by ministry, we'll get into that very soon. We have our guest tonight is Dr. Abdul Mu'min. He is the Student Minister of Agriculture and the National Farm Manager for the Nation of Islam. I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to let Doc take it over from here. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Well, the first thing that I want to read is the mission statement of the Ministry of Agriculture, so that people don't get it twisted as to what our job is ultimately to be. And this is the mission statement that was dictated to me by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 2002. That our major goal is to develop a sustainable agricultural system that would provide at least 1 meal per day, according to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for the 40 million Black people in America. Also, this system should provide the necessary raw materials for the production of clothing and housing for the 40 million or more Black people in America. This requires the attainment, proper utilization, and conservation of the useful land and using science and technology to make the non-useful land useful. And I'd like to highlight that we're talking about 40 million people. The Nation of Islam is 40 million or more Black people in America, former descendants of slaves, or descendants of slaves. Now, some of those are registered and many are not.
Right.
But our mission, as given to me by the minister, is that we are trying to develop a system that will get them fed at least 1 meal a day, according to the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, how to live. We're not going to try to get you the collard greens and the hog. Okay, we're not going to try to do that.
Right.
You want to do that, you got to do that in your own backyard at your own risk. We're not going to do that for you, but we want to develop a system that provides those items. It doesn't mean that it's all going to be reduced at Muhammad Farms in one location. It's got to be a system. As a matter of fact, Minister Farrakhan blessed me to be with him in a group in 2006 where we visited Cuba. And indeed, Cuba, Minister Farrakhan has said, and I bear witness now that I've seen it, is the best model for us to use, because what Fidel Castro did for his people was set up a system where they are guaranteed the basics. In other words, food, clothing, and shelter there, and jobs, and education, and health.
Right.
Okay, people not run around figuring out how they're going to basically survive. The rest of that is on them in terms of their life development, but the basics. And then the agricultural system, the way it's set up, is that they have large farms, cooperatively owned farms by the group, out of the outer areas to produce the staples. You know, the wheat for the bread, the corn for the cornmeal, the black beans, the rice, the fruit trees, the milk, the meat animals. Okay, these are produced on large farms away from the city, and they're shipped in. Everybody gets an allotment per month of the base and potatoes, the basics. Now the vegetables, they are set of raised beds in every blank spot in Havana. So people just go out and they get their fresh produce for their vegetables. They get that day. And what struck me when we first observed Cuba in the early morning, there were no refrigerated trucks. And I said, what? No refrigerated trucks? Well, the staple goods like your rice, your beans, your corn, your wheat, those things don't have to be refrigerated. They can last for a long time. That's why they're called staples.
Right.
And the fresh vegetables they produce in the city, and then people go down to the corner market that's at the corner of the plot and actually get fresh food that day. And they don't even have to refrigerate it because they take it home and cook it. Now, that's the model that I would like to see us develop here in the hills of North America. Your fresh produce should be produced as close to you as possible, so you eat it the same day, not to be shipped 2,000 or 3,000 miles and chemicals thrown on it, then it's frozen or it's chemicalized. No, you should eat that fresh. And then what you can't finish eating, you should can yourself or freeze, blanch and freeze to have for the winter time. But your basics will come from the larger farms on the outskirts of the cities. And so that's a model that's workable. It's worked for Cuba. They are independent. All right. They love their independence and their freedom. And this is what we are pushing for in the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir. So before we continue and go more into you as an individual, we heard the word ministry in the beginning of this live session. This is actually a two-part. Can you explain what the word ministry means and what the 9 ministries entail? What is the purpose of those 9 ministries?
Well, you know, a ministry comes from to administer, okay? And it's really an administration. Many people look at a ministry as only dealing with religious activities, right. But no, it's administering in the religious activities. You're administering some religious information or a system of religion. You're administering it. The preacher should be administering it, not just preaching, but administering it as a minister, not just a preacher.
Right.
Now, for a nation, many countries call their different divisions, some call them departments and some call them ministries.
Right.
Because the purpose of the ministry is to administer and also to teach and train. Okay? It's because you got to have people, you just can't have one level of people and then they die. And then you did, right? No, you're always training and teaching and bringing the next generation up to replace the next. It becomes a system that self-perpetuates itself. And this is the way we used to have it in Africa before we were brought over here. You know, we trained the youth right there with us and then taught them the theory once they did the practice. But right now, they keep us in school forever just with the theory and never deal with the practice. And right. We forget all that we learned, and it's a waste of time. You should have practice along with your theory. Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan announced for us in 2005 at the Muslim movement the 9 ministries. They are education, arts and culture, science and technology, health and human services, justice, information, agriculture, defense, trade and commerce, and number 10 is the spiritual development, which is to encompass the whole thing to make sure that it stays within the teachings and understandings that we have from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because he is the eternal leader of the Nation of Islam. Everything must be underneath his mind and his concepts. That's what we're doing here, building a world based on his concepts. And he's away now getting more education, getting more knowledge. And when he decides to come back and implement what he wants to implement, we pray a lot that we in the ministries are in a position right. to utilize that information and to help him build a heaven on earth. But you got to be in a position to help. Feels like, let's just say we want to build a highway or build a building. Well, it may be a whole new way of doing things, but still somebody's got to be able to read the plan and be able to take that plan and then get the pieces for it to make it happen. If you don't have any type of knowledge about how to read a blueprint, if you don't have any knowledge about any type of science and technology, about physics and chemistry of no type, then it's going to be difficult for you to be of any use because you don't know nothing. They said a white man, he only got one book of mathematics, but do you know that book?
Right.
And don't fool yourself. He didn't do all what you see by himself. We are doing that for him. We're working for him.
Right.
Hidden figures prove that point.
Yes.
Where
Right.
the women were actually doing the computing. They were the computers. So all of our ministries, we are practicing and developing our skills to run a nation for real and run it completely differently from the way the white man is running his system that is running down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bro?
So a couple of things. So first off, I'm paraphrasing. I believe the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the so-called Negro in America is not fit for self. How do you take that statement and kind of apply it to what you were just talking about in regard to that bringing in really of that new world and then becoming or growing to be really fit for your true self or what we're supposed to be through our development?
Well, you know, that's an interesting statement. And in one way, it's correct. But in another way, you know, we got to look behind it.
Okay.
We were fit at one time.
Mm.
You know, it wasn't, you know, the idea that slavery broke us as a people, when we came out of slavery, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. We was at the white man's feet. Some of us went back. That's that earring in the ear. That's a voluntary slavery. But in the period between 1865 and 1910, we had bought 16 million acres of land and in the South. And we were such a threat to the country. They did studies on us.
Yeah.
There's a book called about Robert Preston Brooks. Came out in 1914. The book is called The Agrarian Revolution in Georgia, 1865 to 1912. Now listen to this very carefully. Quote, "No claim is here made that Negroes are not progressive. Such a claim would be idle in the face of the fact in 1910, they were assessed for taxation in Georgia on $32,234,047 worth of property, including $1,607,970 acres of land." Now look now, nobody gave us 4 acres of the mule. But listen to this very, very subtle, sneaky stuff. You got to listen to it. Then he says, any influences which would tend to increase his wants are to be welcome. He needs larger desires and the pressure of competition for work. Now, what is that saying? You heard it. I'm going to read it for you again. I'm going to see if you can figure out what he's saying. He says, any influences which would tend to increase his wants are to be welcomed. He needs larger desires and the pressure of competition for work.
I think it speaks to the strong introduction and pushing of a capitalistic mind and that concept of capitalism where you increase the level or concept of, you know, these desires or things that I want around me, and you make that what you have already to seem as though you have less, or that concept of, you know, we promise you more gold for your labor. You know, I think it's in that same vein where we're doing really well, but I have to make you think or seem to think that I have something or that there's some type of want to get more or that you need more to kind of disrupt the system that you already have in a way. So that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Okay, that's close. That's good. How about you, Tariq?
Well, kind of along the same thing. You know, it takes a lot. When we're talking about desire for something, there has to be something you're willing to fight for, to work for. If you're not if you're constantly being handed something, your work ethic is pretty much useless. But if you're constantly working towards something, you're able to get what you need.
Okay,
Right.
But let me read it again and bring it in the context now of
Okay.
the information that he gave
Yes,
before he gave the solution to the problem. So let's see, what is the problem in this, in what I just read? Let's state it again. No claim is here made that Negroes are not progressing. Such a claim would be idle in the face of the fact that in 1910, they were assessed for taxation in Georgia on $32 million worth of property and 1.6 million acres of land. Any influences which would tend to increase his wants are to be welcomed.
To increase his wants.
He had 1.6 million acres of land. That was the problem.
Right, right.
He worked too much. That was the problem. He spent too little on frivolous junk.
Right.
On consumption. That was the problem. We are going to have to influence whatever tends to increase his desires or his wants. But he's getting land, but you don't want him to have land. You want him to spend his money and time on something else. So they then scientifically developed us into the stupid consumers that we are now.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't come out of slavery like that. We understood that power is in the land. Power is in production. So we built over 60 cities. We built hospitals. We built schools. We bought farmland. We began to barter and trade with one another. And that's why they come now to kill us, to lynch us, lynching a black person, one person every 3 days. Okay, running us out of the farms, running us up north, NAACP, welcoming us to come up north so we can work on the white man's manufacturing plantations, but running off our land down south that we had bought. So don't tell me that we're not fit. We have been made unfit. Right. And all we need is to get away from this devil and his Scientology, his science on us. Now, they come in our community, offering us 4-year degrees, right, knowing that when you get that 4-year degree, there will be no job in that community for you. You're going to have to go somewhere else. And so over the last 50 years, they have taken our people, put some of them in jail, others they put on 4-year degrees, and when they got the degree, they got to move out of the community. They can't come back. There's no job for that. Even when they move to another community, every 5 years, if they want to move up in the corporate structure, they got to go somewhere because they take the job of the person right over them because that person ain't ready to retire. So they said, well, look, it's time for you to move up, but the person over you ain't ready to retire. Therefore, you got to go to St. Louis because that man there is about to retire. You can take his position. So now you move your whole family and move to St. Louis, or you move to California. Then 5 years later, it's time for you to, we want to give you a raise, we want to promote you, but there's somebody sitting right over you right now. So but over here in Alaska, a position is open. So then you root your family up. So what happens is there's no structure of you in the community. There's no community. You just an employee of the plantation that moves you around from spot to spot, so you can't grow no roots. So our fitness will never be fit as long as we're under the mentality of this open enemy who's always looking for influences to get us to do what he wants us to do and make us think that we are doing it on our own. I mean, I just love that statement. Any influences, advertisement, education, any influences which would tend to increase his wants are to be welcomed.
Mm. For those who are listening, can you repeat the name of the book?
The name of the book is The Agrarian Revolution in Georgia, from 1865 to 1912. The author is Robert Preston Brooks, and it was written in 1914. I ordered that book because I'm going to study that book and that man very carefully. Because you see, we're dealing with scientists here.
Yes, sir.
Who've been tracking us ever since they met us. They've been tracking us, one trick after another. the trader made an interpretation, we received more gold for our labor than we received in our own country. Didn't we receive the gold? No, we got tricked and kept getting tricked over and over again. So now we bought 1.6 million acres of land in Georgia alone, just in Georgia, by 1910. And here it is, here they come. Any influences which would tend to increase his wants are to be welcomed. Okay? These people are scientists that's breaking us up. We have to be scientists of making us up and understanding the games that they're playing. So when they offer us money, good homes and friendships and all walks of life, well, make sure you get that in your own country, not under his power, so he can come and take it from you anytime he wants.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna read more into study more into that book so that we can become familiar with that information as well. Jabril, did you have anything?
I did. You know, one thing that Dr. Richards is really highlighting is the importance and power and influence of systems. And when I was looking through his bio, something shot out at me, and I'm going to read it really quickly. He said that he received a PhD in agricultural economics from Michigan State University with a minor in finance and a specialty in systems science in 1987. And it jumped out at me because in terms of systems, I've heard of systems engineering, but systems science, I feel like is really particular and then interesting as it pertains to like business and agriculture. Can you speak to the importance or how the concept of a system applies to agricultural business or agribusiness and why it's so important to understand those in tandem?
Well, you know, we all live in a system.
Right.
All right. You have inputs and you have outputs. Right. And you got to evaluate the good and the bad outputs and then make a decision on what you're going to do next. The environment, you can't do certain things. It's like if I want to go outside in the rain and I want to do something that needs to be done on dry land, well, I can't do that. The environment will control it and it will cut that particular thing off. I can't do that right now. So then I got to do something else. Then I got to evaluate whether that was worth my time to change that direction or whether I just should have waited until the rain stopped. That's what they call systems analysis. You have to look at everything that goes along with making a decision and then evaluate how the decision was made and what was the result of the decision so you can make another move. In systems science, you don't cry over spilt milk, but you figure out why the milk got spilt. And instead of assisting the next time that when it comes to that tilt, you got something to counterbalance that so it don't spill. That's what system science is all about. And as a farmer, that's just a name for what farmers got to do all the time. Because we're always faced with changes in environment, changes in things breaking. And we have to decide on what we're going to do right now. If something breaks in the field, do we fix it or do we move to another task? If I move to another task, who is able to do that task well with the equipment to do that task? Or should I just wait until I get that equipment fixed and put that person on that task because to put them on another task would mess up that task and this task. This is what a farmer has to do all the time. Oh, we don't want to put chemicals on because we want organic. Okay, no chemicals means the weeds are going to come. How am I going to deal with the weeds? Well, I'm going to have to do all my backbreaking work myself, or I'm going to have to hire people. But guess what? People don't want to pay me no more money for the organic product than the inorganic product. So I don't have no money to pay nobody. So if I pay somebody not enough money, then they're mad at me that I'm slaving them. But I'm not getting paid the money to pay them. That's why systems analysis and systems science is so important. And in my book, the science and business of farming versus the art and Harvard gardening, I have a whole section in the book on system science to explain to people how it works and how every decision that you got to make, you got to look at all the ramifications of that decision, and then you got to look at the results of it, and you got to evaluate it, and you got to think like that. System science makes you think like a farmer. Like I said, it's practice first, then theory, then practice. System science is what we've always been practicing as a people before we made slaves. But we don't have the control of the different factors, so you can't use system science. We don't have no control over things. But we had control over things, that's what we use. But then the white man has studied that and made a science out of it. So I'm just getting back from him what he studied us of doing. But yes, it's very important when it comes to agriculture or any type of thing. Like, for instance, you guys, science and technology.
Right.
You know, right now, we need another method of communications because we need to be able to produce those desires and wants. Why do they pay basketball players millions of dollars of money? Because they want them to endorse products, and they want you looking at that TV screen when they pop up that advertisement for that shoe. They pay them that money to get your attention. How do we get our people's attention? The program that I'm on right now, how many people are viewing it? How do we get the people's attention? Yes, there's billions of people could, if they wanted to and knew, could be looking at this right now.
Yes.
But the majority, they're not, because there's so many other influences on them, pulling on them. So then how do we break through to, in fact, get a sector of those people to just look at what we're talking about? And this is where it's got to be a systematic approach. Can't just be done by just a few. It's a systematic approach, because the key of all of this is communications. That's why they killed Gaddafi. Yeah, it was about to deny the money, but it was mostly because of the $300 million of antenna, of satellite that he put up. And that satellite was going to take Africa from the Europeans' mind. It was going to take Africa from the ability of them to desire or to make desires or wants in the Africans. Now the Africans can make their own wants and desires and communicate with their people and lead their people in the direction of the products that they produce. Okay? So how do we influence to get our people just to look at what we're doing so that we can teach them? I love the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for a number of reasons. And one of that is that he is just so beautiful. He is just so perfect. People got to look. Right. When he speaks, people got to look. They got to pay attention. They got to listen. And for those few moments, we can get something through their head before they go back to their devils back there where they came from, and we lose them again. So it's up to you guys, you tech guys, to figure out how do we set up a system that will, a communication system, fits like now Facebook. Facebook is calling in the Southern Public Law Center. Facebook is calling in not Google's, but ADL to deal with anti-Semitism and hate talk. Well, in other words, they're trying to block Farrakhan out. Okay? Mr. Farrakhan has gotten into social media and he's tearing it up. All right? Right. People looking at him all over the world. White folks looking at him, black folks looking at it, and it's messing up their system. It's breaking down their system. Now they got to shut him down. Now, where does he go? And where do the others go who with him? Right now, what they are doing on Facebook, they're putting people in jail just for repeating what Minister Farrakhan said on Mr. Farrakhan's own page. How you gonna put something Mr. Farrakhan said on his own page and then Facebook puts you in jail for hate talk? Right. Okay. So what they're doing is they're pushing people away so that when they come to Mr. Farrakhan, he won't have the following. So they're going after his followers. So whoever's following Mr. Farrakhan, they're waiting in a trap so they can take that person off of Facebook, off of social media, to begin to cut down Mr. Farrakhan's appeal. So now you guys have got to figure a way out to develop, I call it a refugee camp. Every time somebody kicks them off of Facebook, we got a refugee camp for them to go to. In other words, another site for them to communicate with one another until Facebook repents and let them back on. Just a thought.
And that really goes into one of my questions. We have all of the ministries are strong, but we have two very, very powerful ministries in agriculture and science technology. And I really believe that the marriage of them both really can help to push forward our agenda and our ability to assist and help our people. And when you mentioned, that system of communication, I was like,
I can't hear you.
Yeah, we're still going. I'm sorry, Dr. We're still going.
Okay, well, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. To recap, I'm gotten off. I'm getting him back on, Dr. Richie. I'm gonna finish my question. Yeah, we're still going.
Now, what was your question?
Quick second, Dr. Richie. I'm sorry, Brother Tariq. He was trying to explain what just happened. I think he went off really quickly. All right, I'm still here with Dr. Richie. All right, I'm trying to get back on, bro. Just try to get back on. I'm still on, Dr. Richie. All right. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I hear you.
All right. Yeah, so what I was saying was, you mentioned the concept of the communication and the system of communication. And I thought about, have you seen the NFA Studios new basically streaming service for the NOI? It has like the table talks on there, dinner with the minister, things like that. So that made me think of that in terms of having a, controlled space where our teaching or other aspects of our way or just general communication can be spent. So, as I think about that, I guess how does that maybe increase or assist in the Ministry of Agriculture's ability to be effective for its mission statement, like in terms of that communication system you were talking about?
Well, it can be very effective. However, here's the rub. The people are on Facebook because they know Facebook has 1 billion people out there looking. And they think when they post and it's public, they think that millions of people are looking at their post.
Right.
Whereas in fact, Facebook has an algorithm that places the people who they don't like at the bottom of the feed.
Right.
So when you're looking at the feed of people who've posted stuff, you think you look at it. They put the radical stuff 100 places down, and you're not going to feed through all the way down to get to that 100. You're just going to stop at the first 10. Okay? So when you try to move people from Facebook, we first got to make them understand that they are not being seen by millions of people. We got to make them understand to see how much they are being seen, to realize that you're not being seen that much. Mr. Farrakhan is, but you aren't. So how do you want to be seen? How can you be seen? Our own